Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Well, hello there, and welcome to November 22nd, 2022. Oh, guys, I feel like I witnessed something last night that was historic. And it was I thought one of the greatest historical moments that I have ever experienced. Now, you might have experienced it too, but didn't take it like that. But I have little doubt that what I saw was extraordinary, deeply meaningful, and will go down in history as one of the greatest moments in a historic chamber of the United States Congress. I thought Volodymyr Zelensky's speech was extraordinary. I don't have the superlatives. I sat transfixed. And I don't know that I have the words and or the capacity to explain why I feel as strongly as I do. For one thing, I can't recall, I have never in my life watched a man in real time carry a nation, carry his people in his hands and on his back as that man did last night. I don't think you can overstate the courage of this man, and that he was the only person in that room filled with powerful people who was literally living in an historically precarious situation in which the lives of millions of human beings were held in the balance. This was a man, unlike any other person in that room, who was essentially the commander-in-chief, the top general, the leader of a country that has been subjected to outrageous, inhumane attack by a much larger nation. And his reality is different than every other. I kept thinking, he must look at all of these people, looking at all of these people who have the power to help him And it was his job to make that sale. Please, you are in this with us. You have to understand that. But you see, we're not, our bodies aren't on the line. Our children's lives aren't on the line. Our families aren't sitting in below zero weather with no heat, no running water, nothing. Old people, babies, all of it. That's what his people are doing. And I was thinking he was only away from that for about 24 hours. He flew to us to try again to secure what he needs to continue the fight to save his nation. I kept looking at him and thinking, there's nobody in that room that can have a clue what he is carrying, what he feels. And that he was going to, after all the applause, he was going to turn around and fly back right into that war. Do we have an appreciation anymore for when we see a human being rise to the occasion, exhibit all the best that humanity is capable of? Do we have the capacity to be humbled by such a man? Such an unlikely hero. A man who will be remembered for a long, long time, as he should be. I really thought it was one of the greatest things I've ever seen, as you can tell. My admiration for this man is my God. You know, I was looking at him and I was thinking, what's so compelling is you never had the sense that he was anything but real. His passion, his rage, his commitment were palpable. And that he did all of this in a language not his own. His English it's pretty good, but not necessarily great. That he was able to stand there and speak to us. You know, when he came in and the place went berserk, the cheering, the applause, it must have been heartening to him. He's a man, he's a person. Must have been heartening. But then it went on and on. And even I began to think. He came to speak. You got to let him speak. And it was almost as if all of the people in that place wanting so to wrap him up and support him just weren't able to stop. But what I thought was, as he turned sort of helplessly to Nancy Pelosi, and you could hear him say, or I could read his lips, I'm not sure what I did, "It's too much," he said. "It's too much." And he was right, again. Because he comes from the reality of life and death, horror of war. And here he comes into this great hall in America, a nation of extraordinary wealth, but not at war. And he says it's too much. And he's right. There was something performative about it. It's easy. We can holler and hoot. It's easy. Makes him feel good. He needs our arms, our money. I was thinking it's just classic American excess. Another example. Here's somebody living like in a struggle to survive with his own people, his nation. And here we are, American excess, never knowing when enough's enough. This was a guy with a point of view that none of us can even imagine. Right? A level of responsibility that you cannot conceive. And I thought the speech was brilliant. Seeing those pygmies on the Republican side, like Boebert and Gates, refusing to applaud him, refusing to stand with him. You have to, somebody explain to me. Someone explain to me how. You could not support this man and this country. How could you not support this man and this country when he stands between us and the horror of Russia? What vile humans are about to take over the House. What extraordinarily vile humans. I thought David Frum wrote a pretty good piece about it. And he had this different take on it, and I think I agree with this. He says Zelensky came to Washington to speak for his nation, to ask for assistance, but above all, he came to recall Americans to themselves. He came to say, my embattled people believe in you. So he was calling on us to remember what America supposedly stood for. He said at one point, so much in the world depends on You. Trump said he reminded us. He came to say thank you. It's a little embarrassing to hear that thanks, because what Americans gave fundamentally is just money. Easy. Zelensky's people are and have given their blood, their homes, their comfort, their security, every precious thing that human beings can sacrifice. And Frum says he came to thank us, but we should really say no, thank you. So I don't know. I had this feeling that, again, this is a moment that was underappreciated. I mean, so if, I really do think it's up there in terms of extraordinary moments in that venue. Extraordinary. I also came upon something that was written when the war broke out. Because if you recall, when the war broke out, the popular wisdom was what? The Russians are going to roll over this country and it's gone. As a matter of fact, I remember thinking that, and they even called for Zelensky to be executed, that they'd get to Kiev and they'd kill him. No one thought. Remember that? No one thought that the Ukrainians had a chance. And here was this country with a president that had a few years before been a television star, a comedian. Huh. And look what he turned out to be. Do you remember the offer we gave him? We told him we would get him out of there. As the Russians were coming in, we told him, we'll get you out. And this is something that if you know history, you will see that other leaders in that situation more than happily take advantage of the offer. They get the hell out because they know they'll be dead if they don't. Do you know some of the people who took up that offer and ran? Charles de Gaulle. When Germany invaded his country, man, he took off to London, exile. Remember the Afghan president, the minute the Taliban came in, man, he was on a helicopter and out of the country in 2 seconds flat. Also, the fact is that the former president of Ukraine ran off to Russia as well. This is what these people do. They are privileged. And the sense of Ukraine as a democracy was that it was corrupt, right? That's what the Republicans were always peddling. It was corrupt. And it was corrupt because there was a code that applied to the elites of Ukraine, and then there was the rest of the people. It is the elites who profited off the state, who stashed their ill-gotten gains, as they do in other nations as well, in, French villas and yachts and all of that. Zelensky, what did he say? I don't need a ride? Do you remember what he said? It was so remarkable. So he didn't do what the assumption of everybody, our government, everybody was, that this guy in over his head was going to, of course, be airlifted out with his family. And he chose to stay, to suffer the same terror as his countrymen. And boy, did they rise to the occasion. And you have to believe that his leadership there has a lot to do with this remarkable story of Ukraine standing up to and even pushing back supposedly one of the greatest military powers on the globe. His courage should not be underestimated. His example should be taken to heart. Okay, I'll try to stop. I have this fear that we have become so used to being played, so cynical, that we do not recognize extraordinary people when they show up. If you did not see the speech, and I'm sure probably most people did not, I would ask that you take the time to do so. It was remarkable. Fox News, Tucker Carlson, and again, this all in for Russia part of the Republican Party is so mind-blowing to me. And Fox News is part of Tucker Carlson is just a water carrier for Vladimir Putin. His animus towards Zelensky is extraordinary. Extraordinary. I came upon something he said. My God, this is what he said. Oh, come on, Cullen, find it. He actually, first of all, he went on a rant about Zelensky and suggested that he was anti-Christian and that he had declared war on Christianity. If you watched the speech last night, he talked a lot about Christmas, very movingly. And he's not a Christian, he's a Jew. But see, he's a Jew. And Tucker Carlson and Fox News and the right-wing Putin lovers in the GOP, they're full-on anti-Semites now. So there's another reason to hate this man. Here is Tucker Carlson said this of Zelensky when he showed up at the White House yesterday afternoon. This is a quote. He arrived at the White House dressed like the manager of a strip club and demanding money. And no one threw him out. Wow. Okay. I mean, a lot of people apparently were freaking out because he didn't wear a suit. He is a man at war. He's a soldier. He's a general. He is the commander-in-chief of a nation at war, and he was supposed to put on a suit and tie? He presented himself as he is. So, I'll change the subject. Have you spent any time following the story of one of the newly elected Republican members of the House? A guy named George Santos? My God, you can't make this up. So the fact that the Republicans are going to have this razor-thin majority in the House depends on wins like this George Santos. He won in New York State District, takes in Long Island and Queens. George Santos. Every day brings a new fact about this guy, a correction to what he put out as his life story and who he was. And it has become so absurd that it's unclear if he even, I don't know, does he even exist? It is he created a totally erroneous biography. And he ran with that biography. And he won. And he's about to be sworn in as a member of the House majority in the Congress. I mean, the unraveling started after the election when the New York Times was digging around, and they found out that the college that he said he graduated from had no record of his ever being in attendance. That would be Baruch College. The Wall Street firms that he supposedly worked for, Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, They said, who? Now that none of this was found out before the election is mind-blowing. The person running for the Congress. Do we have media anymore? Do we have real journalists? I mean, it's so basic. So basic. For that matter, do we have a Democratic Party capable of doing research on its opponents? What the hell? He totally made up. He also says he is the first openly gay Republican. Oh, and he's a Jew. That's what he said. None of it's true. I mean, the gay might be true, although I've seen gay people on Twitter saying, please, please, let that not be true either. We don't want you. Jeez. He showed up the first night of Hanukkah at what's called the Republican Jewish Coalition. What a group of sons of bitches that must be. The Republican Jewish Coalition. And it was all, sweetness and light. But then a Jewish newspaper, wonderful newspaper called The Forward, has been doing its job for well over 100 years, started as a Yiddish paper, The Forward, and then became The Forward, and it's amazing, great paper. It came up with its own story yesterday or the day before, which is that he's not a Jew. He said he was he comes from Holocaust survivors. Turns out he's Brazilian or something. Turns out he has a criminal record in Brazil. So he went out of his way during the campaign to identify as a Jew. He's not a Jew. He says he's got a husband, but another paper just this morning uncovered the fact that he had a wife right before he entered the race. What the hell? How? I'm just asking, how is it possible that somebody that is this not in any way who he put himself forward as, he gets elected to the House of Representatives and they're going to swear the SOB in? They are. They're going to let him take his seat. A lot of people are saying he committed a fraud. I mean, he put himself... What the hell? There's a lot of really strange people on the Republican side of the aisle. My God. But this guy, woo! I mean, it's so absurd that it's almost comic relief. Just unbelievable. And apparently, I guess the House isn't going to kick him out. They could. I would think they would. I don't know. The House will be in control of the Republicans. He had this charity, supposedly, for pets that turned out not to exist. I mean, everything. It's as if he thought, okay, now how do I win this district? It's got 20% Jews. It's got this, it's got that. I am going to be, I'm going to check all the boxes. Oh, man. By the way, the Republican Jewish Coalition, since the Forwards report came out, have released a statement saying these allegations, if true, are deeply troubling. There is an explanation. We look forward to hearing it. How do you explain? Oh, I know I said I was a grandson of Holocaust survivors who fled Ukraine and then somehow went to Brazil, but then turned around and this and that. Absolutely untrue. He said it was on his mother's side. His mother was supposedly believe me, absolute lie. Incredible. Can't make it up. Can't make it up. And speaking of the crooks and grifters that make up the Republican Party, it was ABC News that took a look at all the grifters that Trump, as president, had pardoned or commuted sentences for. And if you'll recall, of course, he didn't do it as every other president had done it. He just did it, paying people back for helping him, not caring what their crimes were or anything, not going through whatever system has existed or figuring out who really should have their sentences pardoned and or commuted. And it turns out that as they looked at the people that he did that for, there is a whole bunch of them that since he did it are right back in trouble with the law. Because he pardoned a bunch of crooks. And crooks do what crooks do. He pardoned four private military contractors who had been in prison for not a small crime. They had been convicted of murdering in cold blood 17 Iraqi citizens, including 2 children. 4 guys killed in cold blood 17 citizens, not soldiers. And these were the kinds of people that Donald Trump saw fit to pardon. He totally bypassed what is normally done. He pardoned the likes of course, Steve Bannon, who is now again in legal jeopardy. Roger Stone, that whole crowd. Right? But you look at the wreckage of lives and norms and you name it. My God. Oh, another thing about, Santos. I'm sorry, I just saw this. I scribbled a note. He also said that a company which he has, which nobody can figure out what the hell it does, supposedly real estate, although nobody understands where any of the money this guy has comes from. Santos also said that 4 of his employees were killed at the Pulse nightclub massacre. That also not true. What kind of a person What kind of empty, crazy, pathological, lying person with a need to own all of these events? I'm a Jew, the Holocaust, Pulse, gay, blah, 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 this, little sick animals, all of it. He just wanted to be this amalgam of everything he thought made him somebody irresistible to the constituents of that district. And since, of course, all of this crap has been coming out, there are people who are coming forward and saying, hey, I wouldn't have voted for him if I knew this was all a lie. So what do you do in a case like this where somebody fraudulently, totally fraudulently hoodwinks an entire congressional district, aided and abetted by apparently a clueless media and Democratic Party, and then the people have to live with this choice, this pig in a poke that they bought? Unbelievable. You know, I'm telling you, Republicans, just unbelievable. Can't make it up. Oh, man. Something on the local front that I've been wanting to throw in here and want to do before things. Oh, come on, don't show me. We can't. God, excuse me. I'm sorry, just talking to my computer. I want to talk about the Shell cracker plant in Beaver County. I believe I mentioned that there have been some terrifying visions coming from that huge facility where the sky has turned bright orange, visible for miles and miles and miles. And it turns out when that happens, it's a sign of something not going right at the old cracker plant. Something needing to be burned off and something flying into the air. And all of the warnings, all of the dire warnings by, the tree hugger types, by the environmentalists, when this thing was looking to be built, have proven true so quickly. The plant has been up for a few weeks, and already spewing huge amounts of plastic pollution into the air. The reality is this. Oh, but I'm Lynn, honest to Pete, what's with you Democrats? You don't care about economic development? There are people's jobs. Yeah, there's also such a thing as people's lives, people's health. Deals with the devil. So, unbelievably, this cracker plant managed to already, in the first 2 weeks of its operation, already exceed the annual emissions allotment given to it by the State Department of Environmental whatever protection. In 2 weeks, it blew by what they said, well, I know it ain't great, but we're going to let you put this much poison into the air in a year. And Shell said, oh, man, we can No problem, I mean. We can do it in 2 weeks. I cannot believe this is not a bigger story. This thing is barely off the ground, barely operational. And they're already looking at unbelievable emissions, DEP violations. The stuff they're spewing, understand, is harmful to human health, harmful to the environment. We're talking like benzene and methane. Unbelievable. But, our political leadership thought this was a good idea. Right. Which is why we need big change in our political leadership. And I'll be talking a lot more about that in terms of who our next county executive should be. That is something we need to get serious about, who our next district attorney is going to be. We need to get serious here. I have a call. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hey, none of us who live in the real world can be surprised by what's going on with the cracker plant. When you say, it was an eventuality. I mean, anybody who lives in Braddock or Clareton or anywhere, they know the story. Mm-hmm. I live in Bellevue, and if I take my dogs out, out in the middle of the night because they have to go out, I smell what Neville Island is releasing in the middle of the night. They know that's the game. That's the game. They're just going to just spew what they have to and get away with it, unless somebody really holds them accountable, which nobody is going to do. Not even so-called liberal Democrats. And I don't know how you fix that.
Well, I don't know. You fix it by taking your government back from the corporations that have bought it. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, where's Rachel Carson and where's all the,
we built a bridge. We put her name on a bridge. That's what we did with Rachel.
I mean, you think about like 50 years ago, Republicans cared about the environment, and now they were completely hijacked, and now the whole country's been hijacked. And I don't know what you do about that. I mean, we know what the problem is. We just are burying our heads in it.
And you'll recall that this Supreme Court of ours has been actively gutting the power of regulatory agencies to ride herd on corporate America, and from just eviscerating the Clean Water Act, the EPA's ability to have our air be cleaner and hold polluters to account. The Supreme Court is just case after case after case taking that down. It's really something.
I know. I guess on the positive side, I'm on the tail end of all this nonsense, but unfortunately, our kids are going to have to.
No, yeah, right.
Suffer the most. We're dealing with it now, but it's just only going to get worse, and before it gets, I don't know. So anyway, but on the good news, I'm a new grandfather.
Oh, how nice! Congratulations.
As of 5:05 Tuesday morning, my daughter and her wife had have their first child, my first grandchild. So I'm like, okay, now I have somebody else to worry about.
What'd you get? A little boy or a little girl?
I got a little girl, and that's just wonderful. I mean,
I can't. There's nothing better. Nothing better.
I thought I'd never be a grandparent.
Gift.
This was great. Yes.
What a Christmas gift. So I'm happy for you. Really happy.
Oh, thank you.
And more reason for you to work to make things better for that child.
I just got to take this stupid smile off my face somehow. You're helping.
Oh, there's nothing like a baby. Nothing. So thank you for the call. I appreciate it. Good to hear from you.
All right. Well, enjoy some time off, hopefully, and you sound better.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. I am feeling somewhat better, without a doubt. And I do want to say, though, that, and I hope you don't get mad at me, I'm going to take next week off. We're just going to close down this year. I'm sick of it. I'm done. And the reason being, it's very difficult, and I've mentioned this before, to do a show in the times of year when news sort of dries up and people are not living their normal lives and everybody's scattered. And I finally, it took me ages to figure out, but I did start taking off the last week of the year, because between Christmas and New Year's, it's just really hard to put shows together that anybody gives a damn about, or having anything to talk about. So I'm going to give myself that break, because I still need to, sort of marshal my resources, and then we'll start back up January 2, 2023. And I'm sure 2023 is going to be quite a trip as well. Hey, I want to ask, this is apropos of absolutely nothing, but my brother, for some reason, Googled me the other day and was blown away by what he encountered on my Wikipedia entry. And he called me and he said, "Have you seen your Wikipedia entry?" And I said, years ago, I looked at it once. And he said, well, he says, it's unbelievable. There is stuff in there. He said, somebody did an incredible amount of research, and it's all this stuff in there. He says, there's even there's links to there's links to a story in the Green Bay Press Gazette from 1950 something about 3 girls doing a puppet show for charity, and I was one of them. I mean, there is stuff, somebody, and then there's more, other stuff. Who did that? How does that happen? That is not what there was. And I found, I did look at it, and I found articles written about me that I have never seen, because they weren't here. There's one out of State College. There was another one out. And I mean, it's interesting stuff to me, but there are somebody. Can you do that? I mean, it would have required a lot of digging around in every record of, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more out there, I'm sure, because I also have kept stuff. But I guess I'm asking because I'm wondering if it's any of you who've done that. And if it was, I want to say I thank you. I appreciate that. It's good to have something. So, I mean, my marriage records, my divorce records, the announcement of my bat mitzvah, for God's sake. My brother's bar mitzvah announcement is in there. I mean, it's just bizarre. But what it also tells you is, man, and given this digital age, anybody can find out anything about you. Which, of course, can be a little disquieting. But I don't know how that works, Wikipedia, but it's one of the few truly unblemished bright spots of what the internet has given us. People don't go on there to, scream and yell at each other. It is a crowdsourced information hub. No bells and whistles, no fancy dancy, no eye candy, no attempt to it is a true resource. And I know my brother was saying that in the academic world, I mean, some of what's now on Wikipedia for academic papers, for scientific stuff, is just unbelievable. Stuff that people would not have been able to access. So it's one of the wonderful, wonderful things. But I'm just saying, if whoever did that why would they do that? I mean, I don't understand it. I mean, so it's a mystery to me. But it was done recently. Well, it seems to have all this research and stuff dropped into my Wikipedia page in November, and I know my nephew looked into it, and he actually was able to track down the name of the person. The name means absolutely nothing to me. So how does that happen? Why? What is? I don't know. I find the world so often inscrutable and so difficult to get my head around. And that makes me anxious. It makes me uncomfortable, I must admit. But this is the reality. Anyway, I think that's pretty much it for me. Thank you all for spending this year with me. And I hope we have a better next year. I'm no optimist, but I hope we do. I hope we do. And please be careful. I'm so worried about everybody's health now because of what happened, to me, became so real. Please be careful. Be smart. Take care of yourselves. Whatever this community is that we comprise, it has meant the world to me. So thank you. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, Happy Birthday, if that applies. And I'll talk to you next year. Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.